The Central Massachusetts Housing Alliance is doing really important work. The organization mobilizes a comprehensive response to homelessness with a focus on long-term housing stability. The group's vision, a world where everyone has a safe, stable, and healthy place to call home. Joining us now is Leah Bradley, CEO of the Central Massachusetts Housing Alliance. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
We're glad that you're here to have this conversation because we know right now it's been dangerously cold, a lot of snow this winter. What have you been seeing in Worcester County in terms of the homeless population and their response in getting the help they need?
And so we track the trends throughout the year, especially right now when it's really cold. That's when we see the most people trying to come in to find some warm place to be, especially overnight. And what we're really seeing, there's some populations that we hadn't seen in the past. One of them that we're seeing a real increase in is seniors who have never experienced homelessness before, and they simply can't afford their rent because on their Social Security. So the rents are going up and their Social Security isn't matching that. And some of the towns around Worcester have had some of the lower housing costs, and now we're seeing those costs go up additionally. We're also seeing folks that have a higher income. So folks that we used to see between around 35 to 75,000, and now even folks who are $75,000 a year are experiencing homelessness, working, and that translates to about $36 an hour, which is a lot of folks don't make that amount of money. And so we're trying to figure out how to shift some of those services that we have to address those populations. We're also seeing young people who have graduated from college who don't have family members that they can go back to and live with. I think many of us know somebody who have a college graduate who can't find a housing in the current environment. And so those folks are experiencing homelessness and just experiencing it in a different way where they're couch surfing, so they're going from place to place. And so trying to figure out what those solutions are to those new populations that we're seeing.
Yeah, how do you address these new populations? I mean, it's shifted so much in a short amount of time. How do you try to address something that's kind of moving in that way?
And so we look at new models. And some of the challenges that we have around that is that we need to be nimble in this environment. And for all the right reasons, sometimes governmental funding is not as nimble as we need it to be. So really looking to our community partners. And so we have a day resource center that we are currently in the process of renovating a building for that, and the City of Worcester, who we've partnered really closely with. They've been wanting to do this for a long time. They're they're contributing $4 million to it. Wow. And we have community members, so we're up to about $8 million in the $11 million that we need. But it's really about that community support too. So we can't just rely on the government funding. And what that will do for, we talk with folks sometimes who, for whatever the reason, they all of a sudden find themselves homeless and they're working. They don't have a place to shower. They don't have a place to do laundry. And so at some point that impacts their ability to go to work, which then becomes an issue for the employer as well, because then they have to rehire for a position. And so what we're really trying to figure out is how do we provide that location where folks can get warm, they have a place to be, they can also, some of the students can study. We do have students that are experiencing homelessness. So there'll be a computer center really helping folks to not have to experience homelessness for as long as they have, to give them that opportunity to have what we have in our home so that they can get housing a lot quicker.
I wanted to ask you too, when you talk about the homeless population in Worcester versus surrounding areas, it is different. Talk about the differences and how you meet that.
So we have a lot of the towns around Worcester act more like rural communities. So there's a lot of land, there's fewer population, and so folks who are experiencing homelessness a lot of times will be outdoors, but they're in a place where it's not as easy to find them. So there aren't encampments, like there's not a mass and cast. There's, they'll be off a rail trail or somewhere else where they're a lot harder for us to locate. So we have outreach teams, and we also work really closely with the municipalities. So in the town of Spencer, the police department's been great in working with us, and I have to say to Lieutenant Hodgeny, who knows everybody who's in those communities. And then in Webster, there's a community advocate, and so she's the one that we reach out to. In other communities, it's the Board of Health. So it's really figuring out who the folks are that know where folks are staying, so that we can make that connection with folks, connect them with housing. And I think for the seniors, for us, we just started a new senior program, which we've never done before, and it was really around a building that was available, and the resources, we have some of the resources and are still looking for the rest to provide housing for 25 seniors, just because that's a new emerging population. But we're opening the programs and then trying to figure out the funding later, because it's just such a need out there, and we just don't want our seniors sleeping in vehicles.
Absolutely.
Especially in this weather.
Especially, and you have to expand to meet the need, right? What are some of the most utilized programs that you offer in your program?
So one of the biggest programs we offer is the rental assistance program. So folks who are behind in their rent, so we know so many folks are one paycheck away from getting behind on their rent or utilities. And then with some of the changes that have happened with fuel assistance and how cold it's been, a lot of folks are finding that they have to make a choice between paying rent or having heat in their homes. And we were working with a colleague of ours. There was a woman who resorted to overnight heating the apartment with candles for her children while she was working, which is extremely dangerous, obviously. And so folks are having to make those choices. So the program that we offer is if folks get behind in their rent and they have a notice to quit, it's state funded. They can come in and we can help pay back rent for up to $7,000. And there's programs across the state, different agencies across the state that can do that. But it's really around that one crisis, a car breaks down, or there's a sudden medical bill, or somebody gets sick, and folks can't catch up. If you're making $75,000 or even $100,000, you're really living paycheck to paycheck, and that one crisis is really what can make it so that you're going to get behind and never be able to come back.
I mean, make or break, that's for sure. And that's why you are where you need to be. Really appreciate the work that you're doing. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Have a wonderful afternoon.